The last resort, not the first. New guidelines for Ritalin, the drug used to control thousands of children. Hundreds of thousands of prescriptions are written every year. Now the government says that's too many. Tonight, the chemical kosh. But what else can be done to help out of control kids?
He couldn't sit still. And when he was at nursery, he had to change schools because they couldn't cope with him.
We've been speaking to mothers about the challenges of coping with ADHD and whether they think the new proposals will work.
Also on the programme, a tale of two women. Just as Sarah stands up for him, Ruth decides to leave. Kelly quits to spoil Gordon's big week. The frills of flying, we reveal why the airlines may soon be offering a little bit extra for a little bit more. And a golden welcome for the Paralympic champion on her first day back at school.
Good evening. Doctors have today been told to stop using drugs as a quick fix to treat hyperactive children. Attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, or ADHD, is a condition which affects hundreds of thousands of families. Many parents say it makes children almost impossible to control. And for years, drugs like Ritalin have been prescribed as the answer. But today, NICE, the National Institute of Health and Clinical Excellence, said those drugs should be avoided wherever possible and not given to the under fives at all. Our medical editor Lawrence McGuinty reports.
Kieran and Oliver both have ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. It's a bit of a mouthful, and they're a bit of a handful at home and at school because of their ADHD. Oliver, who's also deaf, was diagnosed first 7 years ago when he was 4.
I knew for a long, long time that he wasn't the same as any other child. He was very much in your face. He was a very touchy-feely child. He was desperate for friends and other children. He was always running. He couldn't walk. It was either, there was no stop. There's still no stop in his vocabulary. It was always running everywhere.
If you think Gloria Mills's garden looks a little bare, well, there's a reason for that. Because when Oliver was only 5, his symptoms were so bad that he climbed up a tree just here, along the fence, and disappeared. It took 2 police helicopters to find him again. The disorder affects an estimated 365,000 children in the UK. Among those diagnosed with ADHD, the vast majority, 37,000, are prescribed drugs like Ritalin. Last year, over 460,000 prescriptions were written for the drug. Both Kieran and Oliver take Ritalin, though Gloria is wary of the drug's side effects like crying and weight loss. So she's learnt how to manage their condition, for example with clear rules and timetables that govern their behaviour.
Brush your teeth, wash your face, sleep straight away, accept it. Well done.
Yeah.
The psychologists call it behaviour modification, and that's what NICE want parents to learn.
Parent training alongside is really an important thing to provide. So those things need to happen, and only if there is no improvement should there then be a suggestion that drug treatment is required.
11-year-old Lee's mother, like many other parents, is trying to control his ADHD by keeping him away from fizzy drinks and food additives.
I definitely welcome the recommendations. I do think it's really important that parents are given other options, and I think it's important that there are the resources to back up these options.
And there's the rub. Drugs may now be second choice, but who's going to pay for all that parent training? Lawrence McGuinty, ITV News.
And you can get much more information about ADHD, including some of the symptoms to look out for and where to go for help, on our website at itv.com/news.
Less than 24 hours after Gordon Brown's big speech designed to unite his party, a senior member of his government has quit. Ruth Kelly, the Transport Secretary, says she's leaving to spend more time with her family.
Now, whatever the reason, her announcement today has overshadowed efforts to revive the Prime Minister's leadership and fueled speculation of an imminent cabinet reshuffle. Our senior political correspondent Chris Shipp reports.
Few people were planning on praising Gordon Brown's speech for too long, but he could have been forgiven for thinking it would last more than half a day. But in the small hours of this morning, a major damage limitation exercise was underway. How he must have cursed his customary bad luck. News was sweeping through conference parties that a member of the cabinet was jumping ship. By 3 a.m, Downing Street named the minister as Ruth Kelly.
I'm sure, as you all can imagine, being a frontline politician, bringing up 4 young children, being a constituency MP, it's not been easy all the time. I've relied on the support of my family and friends, and I now think it's time to just take a step back.
Granted, it wasn't one of his most high-profile ministers, but it was enough to shift the focus away from the glow of Gordon's big day. Not a plotter maybe, but neither is Ruth Kelly, Gordon's greatest fan.
Ruth and I have worked very well together. We share the same views. She and I work for the same direction of policy, and I believe that all this other talk around it is designed to disguise the fact that, to be honest, these are personal family decisions.
But no disguising the fact her departures forced him into a reshuffle. Moving David Miliband would still be high risk. He was slapped down this week, but he's likely to stay at the Foreign Office. Ironically, the financial meltdown has left Chancellor Alistair Darling in a stronger position. In transport, Ruth Kelly's vacancy may be filled by the rising star of Liam Byrne. Jeff Hoon's been tipped for a job in Europe, but that would trigger a by-election, and he may think again. And Defence Secretary Des Brown is likely to be relieved of his Scotland duties, but might also drop out of the cabinet altogether. But whatever he does, news of Ruth Kelly's exit has tied his hands. But the timing is unfortunate. Neither she nor Downing Street wanted this to come out today. The timing's terrible.
Well, I've no idea how this has emerged. You know, some people are talking about whether or not it's, you know, people who don't have our best interests at heart. But actually, Ruth clearly had planned to do this.
The curious tale at the end of a long week in Manchester was one of timing. His speech had given him a lifeline. Did someone in the cabinet decide to snatch it away?
So, Chris, Gordon Brown must be pretty frustrated at having to reshuffle earlier than he planned. Is there no way he can be radical now?
Well, hugely frustrated. He was asked to step up to the plate yesterday, and by and large, that's exactly what he did. And then this bomb hit. Now, look, this morning he was able to say this is a personal decision. I've known about this since May, but really today of all days, and throughout the day we've learned that several cabinet ministers knew about it. There's some junior ministers I've spoken to that knew about it. It means this was either a casual slip of the tongue over a glass of wine, or the much more obvious conclusion is that there was something much more calculating. Where does it leave the reshuffle? Well, you've got to have a lot of political capital to carry out a reshuffle. You make a lot of enemies when you hire and fire ministers, so his hands really are tied. I don't think he can be as radical as he might have been. But he's got some momentum behind him, you know, ignore today. He's got some momentum behind him after yesterday's speech. He's now off to New York. He's on safe ground in New York. He's talking about the global financial crisis. So I do think he's, you know, on safer ground there. But really, what happened today with Ruth Kelly really wasn't in the plan.
All right, Chris, thank you very much indeed.
Well, Ruth Kelly may well have dominated the final day of the Labour Party conference, but it's Gordon Brown's wife, Sarah, who's really stolen the show.
She's been widely praised for introducing the Prime Minister's key speech yesterday, marking a major change in her public profile. But could the move backfire? Our political correspondent Alex Forrest reports.
Sarah, you made your husband's conference. Are you pleased with your speech?
No need for any answer. Sarah Brown knows she's helped transform her husband's image in a surprise move centre stage.
Now I would like to welcome to the stage, to address us all, my husband, the leader of the Labour Party, your Prime Minister.
Grateful Gordon's even become her warm-up act.
I know you're waiting for me to introduce the main speaker, Sarah.
Perhaps the former PR exec has been taking lessons from overseas.
And I come here as a wife who loves my husband and believes he will be an extraordinary president.
But while Barack Obama's wife loves the limelight, Sarah Brown has appeared happier backstage, a waste according to those who know her well.
Sarah Brown is a professional PR. She understands how the media works very well. I think it's very sad that she has been left aside.
Her predecessor needed no such encouragement. Some say Cherie Blair became a liability for her husband, like having to deny a claim she called Sarah's husband a liar.
Honestly, guys, I hate to spoil you, but I didn't say it, and I don't believe it.
It was Sarah Brown's own decision to make her short speech. Many say out of desperation to help Gordon, whose political and personal struggles have been all too public. But could she end up regretting her own performance?
If she's any sense, she will keep herself still a very private person, only coming into the limelight on very rare occasions, and that will work. If she starts to put herself about everywhere and is suddenly the new superstar, I don't think that's going to work at all. She can't afford to eclipse her husband.
Sarah Brown may be happy to take a back seat again, but her decision to make such a public display of loyalty for her husband has undoubtedly changed her role. Alex Forrest, ITV News, Manchester.
The French energy company EDF has confirmed it's buying all of Britain's nuclear power plants and has promised to build at least 4 more.
The £12.5 billion takeover of British Energy is being welcomed by the government, which has been pushing for more nuclear power. But Greenpeace have criticised the deal, saying it takes the focus off renewable energy.
Finland's Prime Minister has today called for gun laws to be tightened following a college massacre which left 11 people dead. Yesterday, Matti Saari killed 9 students and a teacher before shooting himself.
A suicide note written by the 22-year-old has revealed he'd been planning the attack for 6 years and said he was motivated by a hatred of humanity. From Finland, our Europe correspondent Robert Moore reports.
Unmistakably here, people are badly shaken by the horrors that unfolded in this quiet town yesterday morning. How could 2 school massacres have unfolded within a year? We are learning more about the killer, Matti Saari. 22 years old, a trainee chef, he left a suicide note saying he had planned the attack for 6 years and that his warped motivation was, he declared, a hatred of mankind. His legacy are these deeply disturbing videos that he posted on YouTube.
You will die next.
Today I found the firing range where he filmed himself in the days before the massacre. It lies deep in the forest. Here he practiced his aim and committed it all to film.
So this is the very spot where Saari filmed those chilling videos. And it raises one disturbing question that'll be at the heart of the investigation. How could police view that footage? How could they interview the 22-year-old and still reach the conclusion he was not an immediate danger to the community? Every Finn wants an explanation, and now 10 grieving families demand one.
I asked for that explanation from the local police chief. Did they have the authority to remove his weapon, or did they decide he was not a threat?
They have authority. Yes, they have.
They could have removed and taken away his weapon.
Yes, they have.
So why didn't they?
No, that is the case we are investigating later.
Politicians here are promising to tighten Finland's gun laws. But those promises were made a year ago at the time of the last massacre, and nothing happened. Surely now it will change. In the meantime, Finnish police are urgently trawling through YouTube and other video sharing websites in case there is a similar warning in cyberspace of someone else seeking infamy through a gun and the internet. Robert Moore, ITV News, in Kauhajoki, Western Finland.
Lots more still to come on the programme, including...
Double gold medalist Eleanor Simmons goes back to school and a hero's welcome from fellow pupils.
Wow. We're really pleased that she did it. Yeah. She worked so hard.
But first, struggling airlines are looking at ever more ingenious ways of taking your cash. They include charging passengers extra for using mobile phones on board, for slightly increased legroom, for higher quality food, and for priority at both check-in and security. Their ideas contained in documents seen by ITV News and being discussed by BA, Ryanair, BMI and Monarch, among others. Ryanair are expected to allow passengers to use their mobile phones on board at a small cost within the next few weeks. So, is it a savvy system to stop businesses from going bust, or just more ways to take your money? Our consumer editor, Chris Choi, investigates.
How do airlines aim to stay in the air amid this credit crunch? Today, we got a new insight into how they'll charge for extras like never before.
Remember when you bought your seat on the aircraft and you took it for granted that everything was included? Well, nowadays, if you want a bag, if you want food, or even something as basic as a glass of water, you better get your wallet out. And today, the industry is warning that all this is just the start. At a World Airline Congress in London, revenue raising was the central theme. And when it comes to what will count as a chargeable extra in future, the answer, according to senior figures in this industry, is almost everything.
Well, everything is going to be separate and indeed extra for passengers in the future. So whether they want fast-track security, parking closer to the airport terminal to sit in an extra legroom seat, those are going to be unbundled from the fare, because ultimately people still buy the lowest fare that they can see on the web.
This conference isn't for the public, and the industry doesn't like to shout about additional charges. But when you look at the literature, well, it gives the game away. Extra charges for airport lounges, queue jumping and fast-track security are discussed. Ideas for selling more on board. The buzz phrase here is a la carte pricing. Costs are not fully established yet, but here's how it may look in future for many carriers. Extras like use of your mobile phone will be around £2 a minute. Security fast tracking may be up to £25. Food upgrades around £10. Legroom upgrades £25. Using first-class style lounges, say £20. Ryanair, Qantas and BMI will now join Emirates in charging for mobile phone use on board. BA's boss is against that. He is considering some charges for carrying sports equipment, but says he'll resist others.
Well, if you want to check in at the airport, you're going to have to pay. Well, if you want to carry a bag, you're going to have to pay. So I think you should look at anything that you consider to be the norm and question, are airlines going to charge for that?
The airline crisis means it's now largely all about revenue. Many of us will long for the days it was all about the passenger. Chris Choi, ITV News.
In other news, a Muslim convicted of child cruelty for encouraging two boys to flog themselves in a religious ceremony has walked free. Syed Mustafa Saidi was given a suspended sentence at Manchester Crown Court.
The inquest into the death of Jean-Charles de Menezes has heard how he warned his family not to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, hours before he was shot dead by police.
He gave the advice to his cousin after the failed July the 21st suicide bombings. While our UK editor Angus Walker is outside the inquest in London. Angus, this is the first time we've actually heard from the family. What more do they have to say?
Well, that's right. We know his name, Jean-Charles de Menezes. We know how he was killed today. We learnt more about how he lived. We learnt from members of his family who were giving evidence that he'd always dreamt of coming to England, that he worked hard as a dishwasher and as an electrician here in the capital. They also described how at a few times he'd been stopped and questioned by the police. Nothing serious, he'd never been arrested or charged. Once stopped at Brixton Tube Station with a rucksack in the months before he was killed. They also told the court how that when he'd been stopped by the police, he'd always thought that the police had treated him well and how reasonable they were. One of his cousins, Patricia da Silva Armani, told the court he used to praise the British police. He mentioned they were always polite and did a good job. He always remarked on how good it was that they didn't carry weapons on them. And in hindsight, that might seem to be quite a haunting comment.
Indeed, and the inquest also heard, Angus, didn't they, from the man in charge of investigating the 7/7 bomb attacks?
Yes, this was Deputy Assistant Commissioner John McDowell. He's the first senior Met police officer to give evidence at this inquest, and he talked about the special tactics that had been designed by the police to deal with suicide bombers. Yes, they had Operation Kratos, the so-called shoot-to-kill policy to deal with suicide bombers suddenly appearing on the streets, and also tactics to deal with the threat of suicide bombers at a state event. But he said there was no eventuality, no contingency, no scenario that had been developed to fit the circumstances that were confronting us on the 21st.
Angus Walker in South London, thank you.
A reminder of tonight's headlines. Doctors have been told to stop using drugs as a quick fix to treat children with ADHD.
The Transport Secretary Ruth Kelly has resigned so she can spend more time with her children. She'll leave the cabinet at the next reshuffle.
And ITV News has learned that some airlines are planning to charge passengers for a host of new services, including using your mobile phone on board and upgrading in-flight food.
stories from Calendar tonight. As energy bills soar, East Riding Council's bright idea to save cash is to dim or switch off some of the region's street lights at night. And caught in the act, the hidden camera footage which could put fly tippers behind bars.
And finally, earlier this month at the Beijing Paralympics, Eleanor Simmons made Britain proud with her double gold medal glory. Well, today, her friends got their chance to say well done.
Yes, the 13-year-old swimming sensation went back to school in South Wales, and teachers and pupils wasted no time in giving her a hero's welcome and how she deserved it. Tim Hewitt reports on a very special first day of term.
Eleanor Simmons left for Beijing as a nervous 13-year-old. Today she returned as an Olympic champion, a winner against all the odds. She'd won 2 gold medals and the hearts of all those who know her.
What do you all think of what she's done? Wow. We're really pleased that she did it. Yeah. She worked so hard.
Ellie, who was born with achondroplasia or dwarfism, moved to her school in Wales last year because of the better training facilities in Swansea. Now she has 2 gold medals and, of course, hero status.
Massive inspiration to others. She's absolutely fantastic. She's always very, very positive. She's a very bubbly character. So tremendous inspiration in, you know, against hardship and everything else that she's had to put up with.
You feel like a pop star?
No, yeah.
Ellie wasn't saying much. Now it's back to the classroom and down to earth for a little girl with a big heart. Tim Hewitt, ITV News.
And isn't that a great way to end the evening news?
Yeah, absolutely. Later on News at 10, we catch up with Sir Paul McCartney in Bethlehem. Our correspondent Julian Mannion asks him whether his concert tomorrow night endorses Israel's occupation of Palestine.
I'm here to highlight the situation and to say that I think that what we need is peace in this region, the two-state solution.
You believe there should be a Palestinian state. Will you be saying that at the concert tomorrow night?
I don't know, I'll be singing.
Well, you do say.
Join Trevor and Julie later, but from us and the rest of the evening news team, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
If the sun declines to shine with Sheila's wheels, you're doing fine. Whether skies are grey or blue, our car insurance covers you.
Hello, good evening. The weather looks very settled for most of us over the next few days. There's tomorrow's summary. The only line we'll need to change, I suspect, for the weekend is the middle one. A few sunny spells won't be enough. Long sunny periods for the south, at least, as we get into Friday and the weekend. Overnight tonight, the last of the showers in the southeast will die away. It's a dry night for most. Some breaks in the cloud, and where the cloud does break up for any length of time, temperatures probably down to around 6 or 7. And then for tomorrow, well, it will be dry almost everywhere. Sunny spells for most through the day as well. A band of cloud up in the northwest will thicken up later in the day as a weak weather front coming your way. Spots of rain for the far north of Scotland only. The rest of us dry, fairly bright, light winds and comfortably warm. Temperatures up around 18 for most of us.
When the skies are